How are we doing? Are we working? Yes, we are. Okay, great. Hello and welcome to the end of the week live stream for this week. And I'm kind of shattered, so you'll have to excuse me a little bit. Not been sleeping well, crazily busy week. I've not even managed to get absolutely everything that I wanted to get record and like sorted and all that kind of thing for next week ready and done. So I'm probably going to have a bit of a busier weekend than I usually would, which is fine. But also just to warn you guys, I'm also expecting potentially expecting a phone call today, and so if that decides to kick off on my phone partway through the live stream, then I will probably be cutting the live stream short at that moment, just to make sure that I can put all my attention towards what I'm actually looking at, what I'm listening to, what this person is telling me, and not have to worry too much about kind of getting back to you guys, leaving you hanging and so on and so forth. So as per what we were talking about earlier in the week in regards to managing expectations, this is me doing a little bit of expectation management with you guys in this video. If my phone, which is sat right next to me over here, goes off, then I'm afraid that will signal the end of the live stream. If it doesn't, and it's just fine, and that person, because in regards to the opportunities that I was talking to you guys about, or that I mentioned last week, which may very well take up a lot more of my time, I hear about the kind of final decision on those things either today or in about 2 weeks. So it's kind of a dodgy situation where it's like, well, I need to wait and sit around and listen out for it today, and then if it doesn't turn up today, then I'm going to have to kind of relax for 2 weeks and see what happens with it there. But hey ho, and it's just occurred to me that I need to open up my emails as well, just to keep an eye on those, just in case. So if an ad plays in the background or anything else goes on in the background whilst I'm doing this, then I apologise. Yep, but that's all cool. Okay. In which case, though, yes, managing expectations is what we were talking about this week, both in regards to managing your expectations in regards to the specifics of like the moment to moment expectations that are formed in relationships, and how you can control your own life and hold yourself kind of outside of the norm, I suppose. Outside of that togetherness thing, so that then you can look in on it and go, right, well, this is what I can expect. But then on top of that, we were looking at whether or not there's a particular difference between lowering your expectations and having a more realistic set of expectations. And my take on that was very much to do with it depends where your starting point is. Because if your starting point is very, very high expectations, expecting Prince Charming to turn up and just wander over and say hi, sweep you off your feet or whatever, or have an amazing supermodel-esque girlfriend with an amazing personality just appear in front of you, then those are very high expectations to have. But then you're going to be looking to potentially lower your expectations to make them realistic. However, if you're fairly straightforward in the things that you want, friendship, companionship, sexual attraction, things like that, and you're open to experience, then there's a good chance that you don't need to lower your expectations to ensure that they're realistic. It's more of a sideways move. But then we talked about kind of expectations of where you can find love, and of the communication that you can expect around a relationship in regards to catfishing and not being lied to. And it all kind of rolls down to the same thing. And I want to take this a little broader in what we're talking about today, just because, yes, we've been talking about relationships a lot, and that's a lot of focus on relationships, and it's possibly one of the most important places within your life where expectations come into play in a very big way. But we also have expectations of ourselves. People have expectations of us. We have expectations of situations that we're going in, places that we work, things that we do for hobbies and all that kind of thing. And it's kind of the external and internal expectations, I suppose, is how we can divide these down. And the internal ones, the ones that you have of yourself rather than anything else, they can be really tough to get past. I think they're actually harder to get past than anything else, but they're not as disappointing as the external ones, the things that we expect from the world around us, from the things that we like, from the things that we do. And I'll get into those in a little bit. But in regards to the expectations around, related to ourselves, it's something that I say a lot in a lot of videos, but you can't expect perfection. You're human, you're fallible, you're weak and squishy, and so it's a case of, if you don't have a great day, if you don't live up to those expectations for yourself for a moment, then it's a case of going, right, okay, I forgive myself, I had a tough day, I had a tough time, what can I learn, and then how can I make sure that I do better tomorrow? It's simple as that in kind of principle, in the way that it's just like, yes, on paper this is the way that it happens. Obviously being nice enough to yourself to actually go through those actions and follow through on the way that you need to examine yourself, the way you need to talk to yourself, the way you need to give yourself that little bit of breathing room. Those are all important things that take time, they take practice, they take getting used to. If you've been beating yourself up for not being good enough for the last 20 years or something like that, then there's a good chance that won't change overnight just because you decided to be nicer to yourself. You're going to have to work your way into it. You're going to have to get used to it. You're going to have to get used to the way that it feels when you talk to yourself that way. You're going to have to get used to stopping yourself from being negative towards yourself and being hard on yourself. Don't get me wrong. There is a time and place to be hard on yourself. Yeah, to be disciplined, to be precise and specific and deliberate in the things that you do. But if you make a mess of something, and especially if it's something that isn't major, you didn't file something in the right place. Well, can you correct it? Yeah, probably. It just means taking it out of one drawer and putting it in another, or taking it out of one folder, putting it in another. And it's a case of going, right, well then tomorrow I fix the problem. I learn that I need to be more attentive to these kind of things. And then I go off and I do whatever else. I go and make sure that I don't forget it. I don't do it again. There was a case in my life where I was coming home from work and I was exhausted. And there were 2 or 3 times when I left the oven on. I'd come home, I'd made myself food, I'd gone and I'd eaten it, but I'd taken it out and just forgotten to turn the oven off. I just hadn't turned the knob back to off, and it took me a couple of times of doing that to go, do you know what, shit, I need to actually change the way that I'm sorting myself out, because I don't want to burn my house down. And it was a case of going, right, well, okay, I screwed up today, I'll do better tomorrow, and by better I mean this, and by this, in that particular instance, it was as soon as I take it out, I check to see if the oven's off. If it's not, then I turn it off. It's something simple as that. And it took me maybe a week of just making sure that was what I did in my head. You know, that little checklist. I finished cooking, right. Close the thing up. What else? Oh, it's still turned on. Turn it off. Right, done. And then, you know, that was an easy turnaround, but it still took me a week or so, a couple of weeks of focusing on doing that, focusing on that change to make it happen, to make it just a thing that I do now by habit, by reaction, instinct. And that's a maybe daft and very overly specific example, but it's still a case of you can make a mess and it could be catastrophic, but it's a case of giving yourself that leeway to improve, giving yourself that leeway to get over it and sort yourself out. Flipping around the other way, though, when it comes to expectations of the things around us, the external world, we tend to either get very, very upset and not constructive, or just clam up for fear of retaliation or reprisal if we speak up, or fear that we make ourselves a target, or that we're contributing to the problem, or whatever else. And the thing that I would say is try and be constructive. Yeah, go the whole praise sandwich thing, where you say good thing about whatever it is, then address the bad, and then follow it up with a we can do better. It's a good thing that we've had this discussion. You know, that's the way that I would suggest addressing the lapses in those expectations, you know, or addressing whether or not your expectations were realistic in the first place. You know, when I'm disappointed in certain games or in certain things that I've done as hobbies or whatever else, it's become a case of going, I'm disappointed, I'm pissed off, I'm upset, but was it realistic for me to be upset and pissed off? Well, yes, because this is a game studio or an organisation that has done fairly well in the past, and yet now their product or their service or whatever is going downhill very, very quickly, purely due to mismanagement, negligence, lack of care, poor company culture, all those kind of things. And as a result, it becomes this kind of big sigh. But you need to try and be constructive, try and be positive. And to kind of lead this into something that's more relevant to you guys as well, even whilst I'm sat here also keeping an eye on the back of house for the live stream here, there's this banner at the top of the page on YouTube saying that the Creator Studio is getting a makeover in 2019, and it's the new YouTube Studio now with more tools that aren't visible, personalized insights that aren't visible, and a reimagined dashboard that's fucking horrible. And so it's kind of a case of go, oh yeah, we can go look at it. Now, YouTube has fallen short of a lot of people's expectations in the last year or two, but in my dealing with it, I've complained. I've made several videos pointing out the problems, but I also tried to put in the constructive side, whereby I put forward a roadmap that YouTube could, if they wish to, probably action very well and fix an awful lot of the problems, not only with their platform, but with the way that they communicate to people, the way that they manage their policy, and all that kind of thing. I've done it from my perspective, working in various businesses and working with various people and working with corporations or working for and with corporations in the past that are sizable, maybe not quite Google size in terms of money, but Google size in terms of the number of employees that they have worldwide, for instance. You know, understanding the way that policy being put out to that many people can get scrambled. It can be a pain in the arse. It can be very, very difficult, because obviously the larger the business is, the more levels of management and of staff, all of those new cultural changes, all those new policies, all those new ideas have to flow through before they become actionable living things within the day-to-day. So I tried to put that forward. But again, like looking at it now, like looking at the dashboard that they've put forward for this, I'm not personally very impressed. Like there are a couple of things. In fact, let me open it up and take a look. So like the the couple of things that stood out to me. Firstly, it's just it just seems to be spread out for no reason. Yeah, they've removed from the sidebar here a lot of things. So now you've got dashboard, you've got videos, analytics, comments, and other features. Other features, by the way, including important stuff like live streaming, your playlists and things, which are at the moment under videos. Your status and features in regards to how either well you're doing, how badly you're doing, the things that are on there, as well as the channel customization stuff and some other stuff. Now, obviously, analytics are a kind of important thing, something that I have used to one extent or another to try and tailor and push certain elements of content, but it doesn't give me enough anyway as it is at the moment. So then looking at the analytics page here, I've got the various bits and pieces across the top in regards to the reach and so on, and the overview is far more simplified than it is at the moment, only showing an overview from the last 28 days, latest direct activity, and which videos that was on, as well as then additional top videos that have made the biggest impact in terms of watch minutes and views and things. And it's like, right, okay, that's fine, but again, a lot of these numbers aren't necessarily the numbers that are always going to be most useful to us. The numbers that we know that YouTube track, you know, the elements in regards to traffic sources, which again, if I click through to take a look at reach, it shows me traffic sources, but it shows me 5 very nebulous things. So it goes YouTube search, right, that's one thing. Browse features, okay, fine, but what part of the browse features? You know, because there are at least 2 or 3 different browsing areas throughout YouTube to a degree. External, fine, I know that's probably from either Twitter or Facebook, or from external links that I maybe sent people. But again, I would still be interested to see what links it's picking up. You know, direct or unknown, I don't know what those are, and I am, you know, if it's unknown then fine, but meaning direct, what does that even mean? There's not even a question mark here for me to hover over for it to explain to me what those are. And then suggested videos. Okay, suggested videos, I know what those are, that's very straightforward, great. And then it shows me when it comes to external traffic sources, it is then there below, but it's still like the breakdown is not great, and some of them are just really confusing, because it's like there's apparently what people have been finding my videos through WhatsApp, and I don't know how that's transpired. You know, it's an interesting number to give me, but it doesn't tell me which video it was, it doesn't tell me the specifics. And then if I click on it and take a look at WhatsApp, yeah, I can't click on this, I can't find anything else, it doesn't tell me anything, it's just there, sat there going, yep, this is where it came from, that's all we can tell you. You know, it doesn't really help as much as it could do. And one of the things that has been asked for, that I've heard about a lot, is again, you know, if you want to make the most prominent impact on this, as it were, then, you know, for your users, for your creators to come take a look, make best use of your platform without having to use third-party things and going elsewhere, then you need to put as much transparency in as possible, which again comes to some of the stuff like some of the bits and pieces in regards to expectations, like we were talking about a minute ago, where it's like, I am supporting this platform in a way, you know, and yet when it comes to it, the tools that they're giving me aren't as useful as they could be, regardless of what is at the disposal of the company that's running the platform. And then when it comes to other things, like they push live streaming. They want live streaming to be more prominent because they want to compete with things like Twitch and whatever else. And yet then they hide that in the other features box on here, when at the moment on the live dashboard it's just sat there on the side ready to go. You click it, you go, and that's kind of it. But I don't understand the hiding of things, and I don't understand the hiding of things in regards to how it's better for a creator, why they've made this change that in theory would work better for us. But I understand why they've done it for YouTube, because obviously as much as recently they have made a lot of statements about, oh yes, we're trying to help people, we're trying to support the new digital economy, we're trying to do all of this, that and the other, what they've really ended up doing is shutting out a lot of creators in a lot of ways as well. But as a result, though, the expectation that YouTube itself sets up is a place that is understanding, supportive, and all that kind of thing. That's the stuff that they want to put out there. We expect a certain level of not just the services that they provide, the utilities that they provide, but we also expect them to stay up and running, especially considering the size of YouTube now. And yet the other day it went down, which actually screwed up the timings on some of my videos being released. And it's a case of going, right, well, if we've got those expectations laid out for us, then when it comes to us then responding to those expectations, well, are they being met? No, because we're not getting all of the support we possibly could do. They aren't really supporting a new digital economy insofar as they are supporting the people who already make the money, but anyone else can go to hell. And in regards to these services, as I said, we've had YouTube go down last week, which was, this week just gone, which was a bit of a pain. But then also their new creator studio looks like crap. The thing that they have at the moment is fine. Why fix it if it isn't broken? What they could do is add some more to things like analytics, add some more useful features, bring back some things that have been talked about and asked about for the longest time, like video responses and things like that. But the fact that they're not willing to do that, then and they obviously aren't making moves towards doing it, it's a case of going, right, well, our expectations were set at one level, and yet none of them are being met. They're talking about how they're improving things, they're talking about how they want to support the new digital economy that they have fostered for creators and things. It's like, that's great, but you're not doing it. The company itself and the people running it, especially towards the top of the chain, seem to be spineless to the extent that then they, when push comes to shove, they let themselves be kind of pushed around, instead of going, we are a market leader and a huge world influencer, you can't push us around like that. It's fairly easy and straightforward to do when you've got the kind of weight behind you that Google and YouTube have, but they're not willing to, and that's part of the problem. That's one of the reasons why we've seen the adpocalypse. That's one of the reasons why we've seen all of this stuff break down and fall to pieces. The ads for Coke on ISIS videos and things, yeah, that's a difficult thing for YouTube to monitor and all the rest of it, but the reason why it showed up was because you had someone who had been searching for those terms, and then it was showing up on those videos. I've never had for me, there have been a couple of videos that I've watched that I've gone, these ads are kind of interesting because they might play kind of counter to the videos that are going on, but I understand why they're there. For instance, at one point I was watching a lecture by Richard Dawkins, and I assume that as a result of the tags on the video, which were probably to do with religion and all that kind of thing, unsurprisingly, the advert that came up was for a set of religious audiobooks or something like that. And it was like, right, okay, that's amusing. Amusing, completely contrasting and contradictory, but, you know, I understand why it's there. Then, though, most of the time I'm getting movie trailers, I'm getting game trailers, I'm getting random adverts from all over the shop. And it's like, right, okay, that's fine. Because a lot of those things are responding to my cookies, to my search history, all those kind of things. In which case, then, though, I'm not getting random ads on random videos. There's at least some kind of connection, either to me or to what I'm watching. The fact that a whole load of things kicked off with the adpocalypse because someone had deliberately found their way to having those generic ads on those videos that they just happen to be watching. You know, it's no two ways. But again, the thing that stood out to me at that point, which I think I mentioned in some of my videos at the time, was that the journalist didn't flag the video, didn't point out that it's not content that YouTube wants on it. They just went, yeah, look at how terrible this is. Knee-jerk reaction from all the corporations, all the ad agencies and everything that are feeding into YouTube. YouTube doesn't defend itself well, it doesn't stand up for itself, it just buckles and cries. And then, well, if it's not willing to stand up to the other big kids, who can it fight? Who can it hurt? Who can it sacrifice to save itself? Oh, well, simple, everybody else. You know, and this is why we've seen larger YouTubers, larger creators taking longer periods off YouTube, going and doing smaller projects for YouTube whilst going and doing projects on Steam, or going off on their own, going and doing their own tours and things like that. Simply because YouTube seems to go, right, well, we want us to be this thing, rather than going, well, what are people using us for? Right, how can we make that better for the people that are using us most? You know, it's a very kind of snobby way of kind of running a platform, I think. And I kind of think that's part of the problem. You know, you've got these people who are very disconnected from the people who are running, who are essentially providing the platform and running the platform in terms of the actual content on it. Because if you didn't have creators, then the platform would just be barren. It would be a nothingness. Which is one of the reasons, again, why when Susan Wojcicki started her own YouTube channel, I just couldn't help but roll my eyes, and it's such a daft PR stunt that really didn't help her at all. It just highlighted how out of touch she was, how disconnected from the community she was, how the majority, a good chunk of the people that she had talk in some of her videos to kind of promote herself were either people that were already working very closely with YouTube, or weren't YouTubers. They were celebrities from TV and movies and things like that. And it's like, right, so you have just, even without realizing it, drawn this big old line in the sand, so that the expectation now is that it doesn't matter what size of YouTuber you are, if you are a homegrown 10-year YouTuber on the platform, then you may as well just not be here. You're kind of just going to be sacrificed overall. You're not cared about, regardless of what they say, and because the platform isn't transparent, they don't look for decent kind of feedback. Like, I've had surveys, a good number actually, popping up more and more, come to me through YouTube, from YouTube, and most of them are about the stupidest things. Oh, well, what other platforms do you use? What do you do this? What do you do that? Well, you're already winning against all the other platforms. In which case, why are you asking and worrying about them? You know, if you keep looking behind you, then eventually you're going to run into something, and the people you're worried about catching up on you will overtake you. You need to focus on where you're going. You need to look at where you are. You need to look for the signposts to tell you where the next turns are and where the next obstacles are. If you're not doing that, then you're going to run into tough times when you knock yourself out running headlong into a tree. You know, And it's a case of going, right, well, why aren't they paying attention? Why aren't they asking the right questions? And a lot of it is seemingly just laziness on their part, because they've been able to go, we've got this thing, it's been running in this way for so long, and it's fine. And yet then, you know, it's that, oh, well, we can't get bored. We can't stop trying something new, because there always has to be something new and something that can be improved. It's like, yeah, there is, but it's not to the same extent that you want to make these changes. It's not these big sweeping shifts. It's not anything like that. You know, if you're looking at it and going, right, well, I need to go and add some extra bits of information so that creators can work from them, or I need to improve the way that we upload and compress videos so that the quality doesn't get crushed as much. We need to do all those kind of things. Then great, fine, completely happy with it. When they're talking about, oh, well, we need to just make this look different. Why? All the stuff's there at the side. Oh, we need to make changes to these policies to make them either more nebulous and ambiguous, or far too strict. Right, well, why? What's the grounding for it? Oh, these terrible people. Oh, but those terrible people make up such a tiny percentage of your overall population on the platform. Why are you making policy just for them when your other policies already catch them? You know, in regards to the kind of somewhat abusive kind of kiddie videos that were being put out, the ones that were kind of pitched as kids TV or kids entertainment, when they were actually somewhat twisted and messed up instead. You know, the prank videos that were actually having kids get hurt, or people cause legitimate real world problems. You know, all of those kind of things. And it's like, no, stop. In fact, there's a couple of other things along those lines that you know, they need to take note of, and where they're like, oh yes, we're going to employ more staff to do more checking and all that kind of thing. It's like, yeah, but they're still not necessarily keeping an eye on what is getting shown where, what's getting highlighted where. You know, you can employ thousands and thousands of people, but unless they're actually looking at the right places, they're going to miss stuff. Stuff's going to slip through your net. You're still going to get into trouble for it. And so it's the targeting as much as anything else. And yet again, going back to expectations, their expectation is that if they just do something, then it will fix the problem. But again, that would kind of be the way that some of the NHS is working at the moment in the UK, where it's like, right, we're not necessarily going to do all the tests, we're not going to do everything, but we're going to tell you to do something, and that should fix it, right? Oh, it hasn't fixed it? Well, that must be you doing it wrong. And that, you know, we've not done any tests to say either way if this will actually help, but we're going to tell you to do it regardless. You know, all those kind of things. And it's the same kind of issue. We're just going to try and do something and hope that it fixes the problem, rather than we're going to actually talk about it, actually work on it, actually pay attention to the things that are going on, go away, have a think, have a workout, plot out some ideas and plans, pick the one that makes the most sense and run with it after we've got a good pass on it. You know, this is the problem with YouTube. If you had enough people just up and leave the platform, which granted would be a lot of people, but if you just had a lot of people up and leave the platform, then, you know, quite frankly, that would be the end of it. You know, the platform would die. They need the creators more and more and more, but, you know, it's the same way with governments as well, to be fair, which is how it's easy to make these comparisons between organisations. But the people at the top don't necessarily know what they're doing. They're not very well versed in how to make things happen, but they will bandy about all kinds of things that they think people want to hear. You know, setting up expectations for whatever new policy, whatever it would be like to be under that government, with that government in office, with that party in office, all that kind of stuff. They try and set up those expectations, and they almost always fall short, because every single time it's not a realistic approach to it to set up and manage those expectations. It's a case of going, oh yes, we're amazing, oh actually we made a whole load of promises that we can't keep up with. And that's one of the many reasons why politicians are almost universally considered to be liars in kind of the mainstream of politics. You get above kind of councillor level in the UK at the very least, and a councillor, someone who's on the town or borough council, is kind of like a civil servant or whatever. They're maybe given a little bit more leeway, but as soon as you get above that kind of station politically, then the stereotype is usually very much a case of, yeah, they lie. And not all of them do, but then again, a lot of them are also not that smart, because they're in a position that doesn't require you to have basically any qualifications other than backing and money to get there, which is kind of terrible in my opinion, because why do we have some of potentially just the richest or most well-connected, but also less capable individuals running the nation? It's a problem. But it's that setup of expectations. You see someone being positive about what's coming and talking extensively about it, and you're more inclined to get behind that person. You're more inclined to sit in that person's camp and work with them, just to make it, just because it sounds right to you, just because it feels good to you, just because the expectation you have of it is, well, this person's really excited, this environment is really happy. I can see how those things make sense, so that means everything's going to be great afterwards, and then it won't be, and then it's a case of, politicians backing down, trying to monitor and manage those expectations whilst they're in decline, which again becomes difficult. We're seeing that in the UK at the moment with all the Brexit bollocks, where Brexit is now being proven, demonstrated time and time again to be possibly the most suicidal thing this country could ever do in the modern world, and yet you've still got people pushing for it. You've still got people who are swayed by the positive and blustery attitude of certain members of parliament. You've got the spineless prime minister not taking proper action that makes sense. It all amounts to the same thing, whilst you're still having, for instance, at the Tory party conference that they had recently, the Conservative Party conference, they had a workshop or a presentation given by a PR spin guy who was basically going, yeah, this is how we need to try and make sure that they don't pay attention to this, but they do pay attention to that, because we've lost our image and we're not doing well anymore. And yeah, you're not doing well anymore. You don't have that image because that image doesn't exist. It was very much an admission of, if we spin things the right way, then it doesn't matter what we do, people will just love us, which is unfortunately true, because a lot of people don't pay that much attention. But again, this is also the problem where you've got the larger YouTubers or the people who aren't creators looking at the changes that YouTube's making, looking at the platform as a whole, looking at the people who are working hard on the content they're making, or trying to develop, trying to grow, and some of which are very talented, some of which are very capable, but because of the way that YouTube now works and the way the things that the algorithms favour and all that kind of thing, it doesn't get them anywhere. It's a very slow climb, a very slow crawl, and it's tough. It doesn't necessarily always work. But again, looking at it from a more company-based perspective, and as I've said before in other videos, YouTube should really be treating itself as kind of an open mic night, or an open mic at a comedy club, where you have your open mic night. People can start just coming along and having a laugh, but then if there are people that are doing it consistently, people who are actually making maybe not even a big impact, but they're making some kind of impact, and they're persistent and they are working hard and they want to work with you, you should be capitalizing on that and going, right, well, I'll give you, we book you on a low tier for a while, and we see how you go. And then, you know, that grows and grows and grows over time, and then those people potentially do really well. And this is the problem that YouTube currently has, because you've got that isn't being adhered to, it's not being paid attention to, and the tiering is left to in terms of payment and investment in those people, is left to unrealistic standards and kind of a follow-up on just, you need to build up your numbers. And it's like, when you were getting paid for that, when you could be when you could run ads on your videos from the get-go, that was fine, because it was just a case of, right, well, you need to grow your numbers. The more you grow your numbers, the more your money goes up, the more, you know, access you gain, and that's fine, because then you've got that progression. But where it's this hard cut-off and then these hard distinctions further up, rather than tiering within limits and actually enabling those people, it doesn't work. You know, if you don't provide people with a full set of tools to do the job, then you're a shitty boss. You know, if you don't provide people with the resources that they need to achieve, to conclude the tasks that you want of them and all that kind of thing, then you do a crap job. And in those jobs, it's not like they instantly give those people those things. That's why in jobs you have probationary periods, you have monthly and yearly reviews, all of those kind of things, or quarterly reviews, or however it is that company decides to do it. YouTube, for the contractors that it has as its creators, doesn't do any of those things, and that doesn't make sense. You know, would they at times be hard to do? Absolutely. But at the same time, a lot of things like the reviews, for instance, progress reviews and stuff like that, you could automate those, and as long as there were audits done to ensure that the system wasn't letting people by with a pass and considering them fine when their answers didn't match up to their channel. For instance, someone that's never uploaded a video going, I need resources, the review coming around and them saying, yes, I have done all of these amazing things, when there's maybe now, by that point, because that person has realised that they can get something from it, they put up one video. And it's like, right, so the one side says that there's a video, a whole load of videos, this person's working really hard, they've got an upload schedule, whatever else, then they look, as long as there's someone doing the audits and looking across and going, is that channel actually matching what the information is that we've been provided with says? You know, then it would be a system that wouldn't fall apart. You know, it wouldn't be the hardest thing to do. In terms of tiering and things, it's not always necessarily about money either, and providing money. It's about providing opportunity, which is, again, another thing that YouTube is just bad at, considering that they will allow their algorithm based on certain things to suppress people, and they will leave a lot of information kind of hidden and obscured in various ways, so people can't use it, so people can't take advantage of it, so people can't understand what it is that they need to do. And so as a result, you know, that again, there's the expectation on YouTube that the creators that come along can be successful, that they will prop up the platform, but then there's very little in the way of actual proper support, proper help, proper opportunity given to those who are new coming in, to those that are building up. And I'm not just talking about myself here. There are so many, especially because I watch through my own videos to try and make sure that they're uploaded properly and all that kind of thing. I also get an awful lot of videos come through in my suggested stuff that are smaller YouTubers that are 1,000 subscribers or below. And I believe that's the same for other smaller creators as well, because I've had other smaller creators kind of leave comments on videos or interact with me outside. And it's like, right, well, if that's the case, then here's the thing. You need to, for all of those other smaller creators who at times, in many instances, I'll say this, in many instances, have a lot more talent in regards to the technical side of recording, the technical side of the software that's required, and they do a better job hands down than self-taught me that's kind of rumbling around and trying to do that plus my coaching stuff plus taking advantage of opportunities and building my business and all that kind of stuff. You've got me spreading myself out a bit thinner, I'll admit that, and that's one of the reasons why, whilst my video quality has improved over time, between the money that I would need to make further improvements and the time I would need to continue to learn and train myself properly on all of the things that I still need to learn that I'm slowly getting through. There's more that I would need to do there than other people have been able to do already, And so looking at some of those other smaller creators, looking at some of those other people, they do a great job. They do an absolutely amazing job. And it seems to, in some cases, that the people who are at the top of this platform that we happen to be on are purely there because they were there first. They started first. They tried a certain thing first and it worked. Whilst other people who are just as consistent, follow the same kind of things, do the same kind of things, are just as talented, generate stuff of the same quality or higher. In some instances, they just don't have the opportunity anymore because there's just not the space and people aren't going to pay as much attention because they're not. As much as it's like we're not in a competitive environment on YouTube, collaborations are a good idea. It's still a case of going, whilst collaborations are a good idea, whilst it's not really that competitive because it's attention based, and if people want to pay attention, then they will. It's a case of getting those people to pay attention in the first place, which is where the kind of problem lies. But again, there are certain ways to do it, certain ways to take advantage of it, certain ways to grow, but also sometimes those take money, those take time. And without further opportunities being offered by YouTube to encourage that continued growth in their platform from new creators, especially new creators that can't get to like a YouTube space. I know that there's a YouTube space in London that I could go and seek out additional help with the technical side of recording things, the technical side of developing things, all that kind of stuff. You do have the online Google Digital Marketing course, the Google Digital Garage, which I've done, which again provides a fair amount of information, sure, but it still falls short of even stuff that you can find on YouTube, that basically talk over and work with the same kind of things. And so it's a case of, in my mind, it's a case of going, there are other things that YouTube could do here to further develop. And yet, regardless, they're not really willing to because it would cost additional money. It would take additional time. Was it YouTube Rewind last year that lots of people were getting pissed off about? And it's like, you have a right to be pissed off about it if you're not getting paid for it. If you're not getting paid for your time, if you're not getting the opportunities out of it, if it's purely promo for the platform and you're not really seeing any sign of any benefit from it yourself necessarily. And especially considering that YouTube went from kind of showcasing in a fun way certain channels that have just done well, they went from that to it just being a, look, this is an advert. Sometimes a quite sanctimonious advert. For the platform with the largest creators, some of which who just don't deserve to be there, kind of dealing with it. And it's like, it's tiring to look at because, again, it's the external expectations that you get more tired out by, you get more depressed by. purely because they are outside yourself. You know, as much as you want to expect so much of yourself, beat yourself up and all the rest of it, when you feel exhausted, you might feel disappointed that you feel exhausted, but you feel exhausted and you are going to collapse. You know, that's the long and short of it. You have that internal awareness, that internal realization, and you can't escape that, even if it makes you a tad upset. When it comes to something outside, though, well, you have no other option but to take the promises and the suggestions and whatever else of what that thing is going to be like at face value. And then if it doesn't live up to that, especially if you paid money towards it or if you put time into it or whatever else, then you feel let down, you get depressed, you get angry because you've been taken advantage of, and all those kind of things. And that's where the problems are, and especially when it comes to big companies, big organizations, things like YouTube. That's kind of where the problem will remain, because at the moment, especially with the world in such an unstable place, you know, and I'll say this, yes, we have one of the most peaceful times the world has ever known. We are living longer, we are doing very well as a species, but at the same time, there's an awful lot of uncertainty, economic uncertainty especially, an awful lot of inequality and imbalance in terms of power and finance. And so, you know, it's when it comes to expectations of things that are far simpler than those big, huge, overarching issues, you know, we want them to just be what they say they will be, and then when they're not, that's a bit of a problem. But anyway, we're coming towards the end of the live stream, guys, because I was only going to be on here for an hour, as I have been the last few weeks. As said, still waiting for that phone call and stuff like that. But I want to take this last kind of 10 minutes just to mention a couple of other things. So first off, in regards to again the opportunities, the thing that I'm waiting on the phone call for, or the email for, whichever way it turns out, it's possibly going to eat up a fair chunk of my time, as I was saying last week, but I'm still going to try and manage. But it might just mean that occasionally when I'm having a crazy day, crazy week, something like that, there might be more gaps in the upload schedule, but I will do my best. I will try and do as much as I possibly can to make sure that everything works, that you guys still get content. And if I need to prioritize between the gaming videos and the coaching videos, I will be prioritizing the coaching videos, as they are very much the core reason for me having this channel, the core reason for me doing this stuff. The gaming stuff, it's been great to incorporate that into my time, into my work time, because it means that I can prevent myself from burning out more, give myself a little bit of a break, enjoy some stuff and share it with you guys. But also on top of that, it lets you maybe get to know me a little bit better outside of me presenting information, commenting on things, and kind of allowing that kind of sharing from the coaching perspective. You know, me playing allows for a more relaxed environment for a bit. But again, I'm probably going to be not just a bit busier in just in general, but also lacking in time for some of the recording, and the recording of the Facecam videos for coaching stuff takes less time. Firstly, it's easier to get into. The thing that takes the longest time with it is the research, but the research is something I should still quite happily be able to do. And so as a result, the sitting down and getting it recorded should be easier. But in terms of the gameplay stuff, especially considering I do need to upgrade my rig, which again I may very well be able to do as a result of some of these opportunities that I'm waiting on now, then, you know, at the moment it's sometimes a bit tricky. For instance, the Desolate video this week, for some reason, the first, I think it was 5 minutes or so of the beginning of the video that I considered cutting but decided against it because of the stuff that Hannah and I were talking about during, that was very choppy, and I don't know why at all. Yeah, all of the other videos that I recorded with Hannah at that time were fine, like absolutely fine. Maybe a little bit of a judder now and then at most, a little bit of lag here and there, but otherwise they were all pretty much just straightforward, perfect, up to the standard of the stuff I'm used to putting out, because it's kind of nearly the top of what I can with my current situation. But it was a case of looking at that and going, why has it done this? I cannot understand. You know, nothing else was downloading, to my knowledge, nothing else was downloading, nothing else was changing. My PC was just dedicated to this. And yet that first little bit was very shaky, very juddery. And so, you know, it's something that I need to develop, need to take care of, need to work on. But hopefully, with the money and stuff, it's this trade-off. Again, you know, one of the reasons why I've been doing those gaming videos in the first place was work-life balance, and yet now it's becoming a case of work-life balance that includes a lot of other things that are potentially going to be going on that are included in the work banner, but are also going to infringe on aspects of my my more kind of personal life, time off kind of thing, which is where I spend a decent chunk of time doing some of these videos. So we'll have to see how all of that pans out overall, but I'll keep you apprised. I still want to do these live streams, but again, if I don't have the time in the middle of the day on a Friday, or on another day of the week to actually do them, then I might try moving them into the evening, maybe looking at chilling out, playing a game or something, instead of having one of these more discussion based streams. But you know, we'll have to see how it goes. Might just be a time of change for the end of this year, and then we'll get settled into a new way of working for next year, and we'll see how things go. But you know, we'll have to see how it all works out. Either way, I'm going to keep trying. I don't want to give up the channel, even if I have to cut back on the number of videos that I'm doing for a while. So, you know, we'll see how it all pans out. But I just wanted to let you guys kind of be aware of that being a possibility. But who knows? We'll see how it all works out. But otherwise, guys, I hope you have a great weekend. I'm going to have a busy one, no doubt. But we will see how it all turns out, and maybe I'll be able to improve things for both me and for you guys as we move forward. But either way, for those couple of you again that have turned up to watch the stream, thank you very much for turning up. If you've got ideas for videos, if you've got things that you'd like to talk about in the future, please let me know, either down in the chat, in the comments on this as a VOD, or through the various links in the description. Then that's great. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, guys, and I will see you I'll see you on Monday, but also I will see you in a video in about half an hour, which is the Conan Exiles video for this week. So anyway, thank you very much, guys. Have a good one.